welcome to this evening's professional development from cyber.org. It is called Embed Cybersecurity into Your Existing Computer Science Courses. I am your host, Jess Hexel, and today is November 19th, 2024. It is 4:04 p.m. Pacific time, and we will be here for the next just under 90 minutes together. So I hope you are ready to participate with us. I am a curriculum development specialist here at cyber.org. I've been with the team for almost 7 months. I am a former high school computer science teacher and math teacher in Palo Alto, California. And I left the classroom, I think, just about 2 years ago, maybe almost 3 now. I was an Einstein Fellow for a year, and then I took a year off and then joined the cyber.org team. With me this evening is Charlene Cooper. I'm going to let Charlene introduce herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Charlene Cooper. I've been with cyber.org for a little over 4 years now. I'm excited to see some familiar names who are here in our PD this evening, and I'm looking forward to a great evening. I'll be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to drop questions throughout there, and we'll make sure to get them answered.
Great. And there was a question in the chat, which I see Charlene already answered, and it is also on my next slide. So, I think she said 4 years, not 40. She's not even 40 years old yet. She is, but we all are. Okay. So some supplies needed for this PD. As a dual monitor is helpful, but it's not necessary. You can do a split screen with the Zoom window and an internet window. And that should be enough to help you with what we'll be doing later. And again, that's not until kind of the end of the PD today. So for right now, you only need to be in Zoom with me, and then later, if you want to do a split screen with your web browser of choice, then that will be fine. If you also have just some sort of scratch paper around, that will be helpful when we get to that activity towards the end of PD. You won't need a full notebook or anything, but you will need to write down a few numbers. So having even just a post-it note around where you can jot that down separate from your screen will be helpful. I am not going to provide the slides during the PD, but I will send out a PDF of them afterwards. So if you don't need to take notes, I will send everything out here as a PDF form. But if you want to take notes, that will need to be separate for now. All right. And I know some people already shared where they're calling in from, but I wanted to, because this is a CS cybersecurity hybrid kind of meeting, I did want to get some information from you all as we get started. In the chat, if you could tell me the course or courses you currently teach, the city or state you're calling in from, however much is you're willing to share. And then if you can think of it, when was the last time you received a phishing text or email? Thank you, Charlene, for putting those in the chat for us. Like I said earlier that I'm a former math and computer science teacher. I specifically taught AP CS principles, and I taught an elective computer science class as well. that doesn't really have a name that aligns anywhere else in our CS world. It was just our own at our school. But yeah, I taught CS principals and a different intermediate elected that was somewhere between APCSP and APCSA. I see a lot of courses coming through. APCSP, cybersecurity, CS discoveries, APCSA. Congratulations on recently passing your CompTIA Cybersecurity A+ exam. All right, a lot of variety. Excellent. And yes, lots of phishing almost every day. Either in the form of emails or texts, definitely. I haven't noticed as many coming through in text for me since the election has ended. I was getting them almost every day, not just election related ones, but also just random emails that were, or messages that were coming through at the same time. And it has somehow luckily slowed down a little bit, so. All right, that'll come up again later in our session, but just wanted to get you thinking about that as we as we go through today's session. So here is our agenda for the evening. We are going to spend some time looking at APCSP connections with cybersecurity content. I'm gonna go through some APCSA connections. It is a little bit harder to make those APCSA connections since that course is so scripted to Java and our content is not in Java. But I do have some hopefully interesting ways that you could still use some of our materials in there. And then because we talked about many other courses that we teach that are not just those two AP aligned courses, I do have some connections to show you just in other curricula we offer. Then we're gonna do a range activity. We'll get some hands-on experience in our cyber range. And then at the end, I will debrief kind of everything we did, and I will ask you to complete a survey. It is a pretty quick survey, so I hope you will be able to do that for us at the end. Our objectives for the evening are to gain a better understanding of how to teach cybersecurity, to consider opportunities to integrate cybersecurity topics into computer science objectives, and to learn about our cyber range. Some keywords you might hear me say or see throughout this presentation. Free, when cyber.org says free, we really mean free, no cost ever. Our materials are always available to teachers in the US who teach in a K-12 classroom, whether it's private or public. And we will never ask you for money, whether it's these PDs that we offer, they're free. And then our materials are always free, including our cyber range. Cybersecurity, just in case anyone's coming here never having seen a definition for it, we use the definition that it is the protection of networks, devices, and data from unauthorized use. Our cyber.org cyber range is a secure, also free virtual environment for students and educators to get real hands-on experience in a virtual environment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in 1 minute. And our SE toolkit, our social engineering toolkit, is a program that helps students understand social engineering attacks and the safety of our cyber range. It is not a program that you need to download. It is built into our cyber range. So at no point are you needing to download anything to your school computers or personal computers. This is all built into our virtual environment for you and your students. Our cyber range is a secure, no-cost virtual environment to practice these cybersecurity skills. It's cloud-based. You can run it on any device that has internet access. It is built to be able to run on a Chromebook and any other type of laptop. While you can run it on a tablet or even a phone, possibly, it's not advised, just so you have a keyboard to actually type into it. So we do recommend a minimum of a Chromebook or laptop, whatever you have available and your students have. Thank you, Sylvie. Works great on the Chromebook. Again, no additional hardware or software is needed. It's all cloud-based, so you're not downloading anything. And it was recently iKeep Safe certified. It has FERPA and COPA compliance, so your students are not giving us any personal information to log into the cyber range. You are the one who is creating an account with us, and then you're creating generic logins for your students to use, kind of like what you will log in with later today from me, where I'm the teacher and I have created some default accounts for you to log into. So I'm not collecting any of your personal information. And just like our curriculum, our cyber range is free and available to all K-12 educators in the United States. So we are gonna switch into our content with some APCSP connections. Again, this was the primary course that I taught for my last, I think, 6 years before I left the classroom. So I found it the easiest to make connections there, especially because I had already been teaching some cybersecurity content in that course. So you'll see kind of a big stretch here on APCSP connections, and then a few more for all the other content or all the other classes that we offer. So I did try to break this down by the big ideas of APCSP. So big idea number 2 is all about data, which specifically topic 2.1 talks about binary numbers. We have a few different lessons and materials that align to that. We have a cyber literacy course that offers a pretty fun lesson. We're going to walk through it today a little bit on binary, ASCII, and digital logic. We have an intro to cybersecurity course that also has a lesson on bits, bytes, and binary in its cryptography unit. And for topic 2.3, that's specifically more in metadata, we have a course called range activities, and that is an activity on called Taylor's Travels, where the students actually go into the cyber range, download pictures from a fake website that we've created, and then look at those images to explore the metadata and answer some questions about where the pictures were taken, and other information that you can find in the background. But like I said, we're going to look at that cyber literacy lesson today together. So I am going to switch over to Canvas for a moment. Sorry, it's taking me a second. And if you've never created an account with us or logged in to our portal, Charlene is sharing the link to sign up for curricula access. Unfortunately, we won't be able to give you access in real time, but you will get it in a few days if you want to sign up. But if you've never navigated through Canvas before, you'll just enter your information and log in. It'll bring you to a dashboard. Yours may look different than mine, as I've, well, one, I'm a staff member, so I have access to everything. And then I have some things that I've specifically stuck on to my dashboard so that I can see them quickly when I'm working. But the course we're going to look at today is in high school, and it's called Cyber Literacy. And then it gives us the course overview, but we're gonna say we know what it's about. We want to go look at its content. And then we can see all of the materials available in cyber literacy, from the getting started with the microbit, a unit on scripting, the unit on encryption, which is the actual unit we're going to look at together. And then if we scroll down, we see a few more for radio networks and attacks and defenses. But what we're going to look at right now is in the encryption unit, these materials on binary, ASCII, and digital logic. From here, you can see the lesson guide is available, as well as the slides and a few handouts that go with the lesson for the students, along with answer keys for you. The reason students can't log into our Canvas is so that those answer keys are only for educators, not for students. So if you click on any of these links, you can access those materials. I just wanted to show how to get there for anyone who's never seen that before, but I am going to switch back to the PowerPoint because I have already put the lesson into our PowerPoint for the evening. What those lesson slides would look like, I've taken them from the actual course and just put them into my presentation. So we have our title slide telling us the title of the lesson, as well as our guiding question for the lesson, and some student objectives that will be covered throughout the lesson. Again, I'm connecting this to APCSP for binary, so my primary focus of showing you this is only to show you binary. I will show you a little bit of the ASCII since it has some connections to binary. And even though digital logic also has some connections to binary, it's beyond the scope of what we do in APCSP, so I've removed that part of the lesson from the slides that I've copied into my presentation tonight. This lesson starts with just some general vocabulary to introduce students to the binary number system, ASCII, and digital logic. Those are the three main pieces that will be covered throughout all of the activities. It helps talk through how counting in binary works with a side-by-side comparison to the decimal system. It makes a further connection to how each digit in decimal gets its value, and then uses that to show the same way that binary gets its values in each digit and how to do a binary to decimal conversion. Gives students practice problems with a table, which is how I used to do this exact lesson in my classroom with students, walk them through some conversions, and then ask them to do a few using the same system. So they would try to do their own computation for representing 9 in binary and representing 42 in binary. And then it gives you a chance to talk about using 8 bits or 1 byte to represent data commonly, and then explaining to your students or not that they can remove leading zeros or keep them there, depending on how you want them to give their answers to you. Again, going through how binary bits work and how many values can be represented in how many bits. So working through examples from 3 bits to 64 bits, all the way up till the formula that we use to do it for n bits, and just showing that in the form so that they can get to that. And then the bulk of this course, cyber literacy, and then a lot of the actual lesson goes into a Python editor. So this course is primarily written in Python. I know APCSP is language agnostic, so you could be using Python, you could be using block-based. We have written these lessons using the microbit Python editor, so you could also kind of convert them into the make code block language pretty easily from the same editor if you are teaching in block. So I just shared, Charlene shared the link to the Python editor that we use and that we recommend for these lessons. This lesson shares scripts with the educator, so you would have access to these scripts in the Canvas materials, and then you could choose whether or not you want to share all of the scripts with your students, or if these are actual class exercises that you want to walk through together to have them build these materials to do the actual decimal to binary programming. And then a slide just explaining how it all works. So they're importing a module that already has that function written. Again, it was often a function that I required my students to write, so I would probably give them the module, but not give them the code for the decimal to binary function, so that that's something they had to write on their own, and then they could do all of the tests and all of the handouts and still be able to use these resources, but still show me that they know how to write that function on their own. This slide is just showing that this is where you would stop in the lesson to give the students the binary handout. There are 3 handouts that go with the lesson: binary, ASCII, and logic. So this is just where we would pause, give them the handout, have them work through the exercises on their own, and then come back together to talk about ASCII. Again, sometimes when we do labs, we want them to do the conversion from binary to decimal to ASCII. If they're kind of generating passwords or doing any sort of encryption, it's a fun way to incorporate cybersecurity, encryption, and get into the basics of programming in APCSB. So the lesson continues with how ASCII values our common table exists and what is represented by the different decimal values, and then goes into more programming scenarios, again in the Python editor, and with a corresponding handout with some different functions that are given to you, and then again you can choose to give to your students or not. The next part would have been that digital logic set of lessons and corresponding handout, and then the end of every lesson is a putting it all together or a summary slide asking the students questions about the main topics of the lesson. So that is all in there. Any questions there before I continue? Just because I'm not sure how fast I went through that. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to ask me questions. Your wait time. Okay. So then I moved into big idea 3, algorithms and programming. I found that the best way to help teach this using our materials, if you were looking for free resources to help you, would be to access our Coding Fundamentals course. Our Coding Fundamentals course is available in both Block and Python. So this one actually offers both of those already to you. So you could teach from Block and progress into Python if that's how you want to structure your class, or just choose the one that you planned on teaching in. There's a question now. Is the lab work related to the lesson in digital or worksheet format? The lab from that previous lesson, from the cyber literacy? Is in a worksheet format that the students are going to the Python editor to do the work and record their answers on the worksheet. So I hope Yes, and in general, yes. So it is asking them to do activities digitally in the Python editor and then record them on the worksheet. So that you're able to see what they're doing. In general, it's different per course. So for cyber literacy, that's the way almost every handout and activity goes. And yes, so in a lot of our high school level courses, it has a worksheet to go along with doing some sort of performance task online in a coding environment. Okay, good, good. All right, where I'm supposed to be. So, again, that's Coding Fundamentals, offers lots of materials for lessons and student handouts in both block-based make code and in the Python editor. So I'm gonna move ahead to big idea 4, which is computer systems and networks. Topic 4.1 in that big idea is about the internet. So again, looking at that cyber literacy course, we have a whole unit called radio networks where students program microbits. If you're able to get classroom sets of microbits, they can actually build a network inside of the classroom using the microbits. It's a full unit, so it talks them through it from beginning to end and how they can even send messages or not send messages and why that happens. So that's all in cyber literacy. And then we also cover fault tolerance in our Intro to Cybersecurity course in Unit 5 on network connections. So we've already looked at cyber literacy in Canvas, so I put screenshots just of that Introduction to Cybersecurity course on here so that you can see what it looks like if you were to go into Canvas and look for those materials. And the screenshot is that entire Unit 5 on devices and networks to help with that topic. Most of ours are for the V2 microbit. And a lot of our materials have side notes if you're using anything before the V2, because some of the components just aren't the same, but it has teacher notes to let you know if you have older ones, some of the ways you can modify. Big idea 5, in my opinion, is one of the easiest places to fit cybersecurity content into APCSP because we're talking about the impact of computing. So we have an opportunity to talk about beneficial and harmful effects through AI and communities, which we cover in cyber society. We talk about crowdsourcing also in cyber society through a unit on data. I think almost every course we offer has something about legal and ethical concerns, but I pulled out these 3 specific examples from Intro to Cybersecurity. Unit 6 is all about law and ethics. Cyber literacy, we cover AI assisted scripting and kind of starting to get into the ethics behind that with AIs and using AIs to help us in programming. And cyber society has full unit bundles around ethics, law, and AI. And then for safe computing, our Intro to Cybersecurity course has a unit on privacy and security, so covering a full debate. And then in our range activities, we have a range activity on phishing, social engineering, and JTR, which is just an abbreviation for a program called John the Ripper, which talks about password cracking. So it's a program that ethical and malicious actors use to crack passwords. And so it will talk about the duality of cybersecurity tools and how they can be used both for good and bad. Before I move in there. I'm gonna switch to Canvas one more time for right now, just to show Cyber Society. I mentioned it quite a few times on this slide. So it is one of our courses that is more heavily aligned to humanities and cross-curricular connections. So it is less about programming and more about how technology and cybersecurity infiltrate all kinds of topics that we would want to cover. So in that impact of computing, we talked about law, ethics, data, AI, communities, and then this also goes into business. I heard someone, or not heard, but I saw somebody say they taught business. So it does talk about business, politics, media literacy, and ACEs, which are scenarios that you can lead students through that are full cybersecurity scenarios. ACEs stands for Analysis and Investigations of Cyber Scenarios. So it does talk through these slides behind on my cheat sheet here. Analysis and Investigation of Cyber Scenarios. Trying to make sure I got it right. It sets them up for an incident that has occurred that may or may not be a cybersecurity incident, and then gives them different folders of information as they go through the scenario until they can hopefully figure out what happened, who did it, what should the response be, and they actually get to take on the role of a DHS agent as they work through that. And let's switch back to my PowerPoint and pause again for questions of anything I talked about in that APCSP overview. Thirty extra seconds of wait time this time because I feel like a question came in right after I stopped waiting last time. Right? Looks like you can outweight me. So I am going to switch into some APCSA connections. Again, APCSA is how it's always is, has, and always will be aligned to Java as far as we can tell. Even the updates that are coming in 25, 26. That was one of the first things the College Board published about it, is that it will still use Java. They said we can't announce any other changes, but it'll still be Java. So it used to be C a long time ago, yeah. And maybe in the future we'll be able to say it used to be Java a long time ago, but it still is Java. So none of our courses currently use Java because we try to use things that are all available online, that you don't need to have separate programs. You don't need to download Eclipse and walk your kids through installing Eclipse at the beginning of the year for weeks and weeks until they finally get it right. So our courses use Python, and I think I'm making a pitch to you all this evening that either your students can do it in Python using our materials, or you could modify the code slightly by switching it from the downloads that we give you of the materials that are in Python, and you could import those, change those out into Java, because yes, the language is not the most important thing. It is the concepts. So I think that the labs that we have here in cyber literacy and intro to cyber and cybersecurity cover some interesting topics with cybersecurity that wouldn't necessarily be in an APCSA course, but that give you that opportunity to bring in new, relevant, interesting topics to a different environment. So again, we looked at cyber literacy earlier and we saw some of those Python projects, and that encryption unit I think would be a really fun way, especially for students who maybe have finished all of the default labs that we give them and we want them to explore something they're interested in, but in cybersecurity, but still either use Python, which is still mostly object-oriented, and they're still going to get a lot of the syntax together. But then again, they're exploring their horizons by possibly learning a new language, or if you want to adapt it into Java, we give you the object classes so that you could do a comparison, or that you can just give them the same materials. So I just put a screenshot in here to show you some of that code using a Caesar class that we've defined, and we provide the API. I don't know why, I just thought of different letters. Yeah, we provide the API for that, and then students can use those objects to create Caesar ciphers and practice doing some encryption. Unit 5 on writing classes, again, similar to using those materials in cyber literacy and using those encryption classes with Caesar and other ciphers that are available there. I tried to focus this one on Big Idea 4, the impact of computing, and looking specifically at ethical and social implications. So in our cyber society course that we looked at earlier, we do have that ethics tab of a bundle of lessons related to ethics. In Intro to Cybersecurity, we have a lab on a social engineering toolkit, similar to the one we are going to do this evening, that is actually in our cybersecurity course, and it is the lab on credential harvesting. So put it here and we'll actually go through that one in a little while. And then also in Unit 7, it talks about Big Idea 4 again with ethical issues around data collection. So wanted to point out in Cyber Society, again, we have that whole bundle on data. I'm going to show you one example lesson of that in 1 minute. And in cybersecurity, we have a lab called file hashing to show them some of that data collection ethical issues, as well as a case study called Handling Sensitive Data to talk about some ethical issues around data collection. So this is an example of a lesson from Cyber Society around data and trust. This lesson is unplugged for students. So again, it's more of that liberal arts humanities course that's written to talk about technology, but not necessarily use technology or program. So this lesson's focus is on what is trustworthy data online, and students are going to practice analyzing the difference between subjective and objective, identify possible cybersecurity risks for engaging with untrustworthy data, and talk about the ethical considerations for creating and or sharing false data online. So it is going to talk through kind of all of those in the lesson. The main idea is, or the main activity that follows through the lesson is reading 4 scenarios and deciding what kind of is a concern about them, and then how can we improve upon them. So these are the 4 scenarios that the lesson walks through. I'm not going to take time to read each one, just so we can get to our main events, but it does talk through 4 different scenarios for interacting with data online. After students read through them and discuss them, it summarizes the overarching themes. That data was quickly shared in each one through social media before it was fact-checked or confirmed. And then telling the students that the lesson is going to talk about what data we can trust and how can we look at data more, or look at information online more critically. I have deleted some of those slides from this presentation because I don't want to define all of those to you. But then once you've had time to define and discuss subjective versus objective, analyzing sources, the ethics of sharing and creating false information, then we go back to those same 4 scenarios and have groups rewrite 2 of them. So this is, again, those 4 scenarios just written all on one slide so that you could display them again to the whole class, while groups then rewrite 2 of them, trying to talk about when there would have been opportunities to stop and analyze the data and do more research, and then make better decisions about whether they should or should not share the post in the first place. So that is that lesson from Cyber Society. Kind of just as a bring in and add on to the content we're already using in APCSA, and then giving students the chance to, again, summarize their learning at the end of the lesson and make sure they're starting to have those conversations about pausing when they see information online and reconsidering if it's trustworthy and if they should share it. Thanks. All right. So that was, oh, and it hit one more. Okay, so that was the end of those connections with APCSA. I'm going to jump us into other curricula, and then we are almost into our range activity. So are there any questions, thoughts, aha moments anyone wants to share before we move on? All right. So I remember when we asked about which classes you teach earlier, a lot of people did teach our College Board APCSP and APCSA courses. Again, that's primarily what I taught as well. But for those of you who teach other electives or other courses, or maybe even a capstone class, and you're always looking for materials to offer students who are just ahead of wherever you are in the main part of the class, I wanted to point out these resources. If you're looking at starting a new course or bringing an elective to your school, you could consider offering some cybersecurity specific courses, like the ones we've already looked at, but also we have a networking course that's aligned to the CompTIA Network Plus certification, and Intro to Linux course aligned to the Linux Plus certification. If you're teaching earlier grades or just have some students who don't know some of the basics that you're getting into, we have a course called Cybersecurity Basics, which we say is aligned to K through 8, but on all student-facing materials, we do not put grade bands on those, so that if you're pulling a lesson from 6 through 8, but using it with 9th graders, they aren't going to know it came from 6 through 8. And it might be appropriate at the beginning of the year to use with them, but it's not gonna, get those ninth grader mentalities of, oh, I'm too old for this. This is so middle school. So you'll see it as the teacher, the one with access, but the actual slides that would be student facing would not have that information on there. And then we've talked about our range activities course a few times already. And that course, those materials were also written for 6th through 8th, but they're very detailed labs for the cyber range that have introductory lessons on the main topic, as well as the range activity that connects everything together. So the lab we're going to do tonight is a credential harvesting lab. We're just going to do the lab. We're going to go into the cyber range and just work in the cyber range. But if it were the middle school range activity on phishing, which is the similar topic, it would have a full set of slides available to talk about phishing and go through some small activities first that are unplugged about phishing, and then put them on the range and actually see how phishing works in the virtual environment. And then the last one I put on here is called Middle School Computer Science Elective 1 and 2. That one is actually very similar to what I'm doing for you tonight, which is trying to pull our materials by common themes and activities. And it's not its own course, it's pulling materials from all of our other courses and trying to arrange it into how you could teach semester electives on computer science using a lot of information across the different courses. And yes, absolutely, with your 8th graders, they could use this. We've tested it on as low as 4th grade, I think. This is a struggle with 4th grade, but really good. Upper 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, those activities have worked really well for us so far. All right, and now we are going to get into the hands-on part of the evening with our range activity. So we are going to put a link in the chat to a Google Doc of range login accounts. You will see on there that there are way more accounts available than there are people logged in right now. So you don't have to fight over specific logins. Just find where somebody is not editing and claim that one for yourself. We're gonna go log into the range in a moment, but I'm gonna let you access that Google Sheet and, well, Google Doc, I guess, and just claim a range account in there. And we will go to the website and log in with that information shortly. We are again doing the credential harvesting lab from our cybersecurity course. And in case you didn't memorize everything I've said so far, I said that this one aligns to Big Idea 4 in APCSA on ethical and social implications of computing systems. This actual slide deck that goes with the activity in the cybersecurity course. The materials needed are in the range itself. These are not, again, you don't need to download anything to use the range or these activities. These are just telling you in advance which virtual machines you'll need to launch for your class, which Charlene has already done for us. We have a Kali Linux machine that we'll be working in, as well as a Windows 7 virtual machine that we'll be working in. And we'll be accessing the social engineering toolkit. So if we are unfamiliar with it, credential harvesting is any attempt by a malicious actor to obtain our login credentials. So similar to, related to phishing, when people are trying to phish us, it is often to get us to click on a link, and then sometimes it is to click on that link and enter login information. and they are trying to harvest our credentials in that action. So we're going to actually both deploy a credential harvesting attack on ourselves in a secure environment, and then we are going to play the victim against ourselves and harvest our own data and give up our data. These are the materials that we'll be using today and the process that we'll be walking through. And this is the last slide that I'm going to show for a while, because then I'm going to switch us into the range. Was everyone able to claim an account in the Google Doc? Excellent. So we are going to go to apps.cyber.org. Charlene has put the link in the chat for you. You're going to type in the random string of characters that we've created for you as your username. And then the very secret secure password that is the same for all of you in the password. As usual, capitalization matters, so do make sure you're paying attention to the uppercase, lowercase of any of those characters in both your username and in that super strong, super secret password that I've created for you. Logged in, you should only see Jess. You should not see all of these other classrooms because you are only a student for me. So you should just have to click on the Jess classroom to then see your available machines. You won't see all of these, you'll only see yourself. Before you click on anything, hopefully I said that fast enough, I'm going to have you go up to where you have this website open. Once you're logged in and you're in the course, so you should be on the same screen, but you won't see everybody's information, you'll only see yours. I'm going to have you right click or control click that tab and duplicate that tab, because we are going to be using 2 virtual machines tonight. So it's a lot easier if we have a tab for each of them, rather than needing to close out of one to navigate to the other. So if you're able to do that in one window, you want to open your Kali Linux machine, and in the other one, you want to launch your Windows 7 machine. Everything we do at the beginning is going to be in the Kali Linux machine. So we want both of them open. We want to be able to access both. But then if you can switch back to the Kali Linux virtual machine. Everybody here and ready? This is the hard part about virtual PD. I can't see all of your screens to make sure. Thank you for the thumbs up. So we are going to open the terminal. If you've never opened a terminal before, it is this white outline box with kind of that black screen in the middle. This lab wants us to record our Kali machine's IP address. So does anyone see or know how to access the IP address of our Kali virtual machine? We try to make it super easy for you. Yeah, so there are definitely commands that we can type into the terminal to access it. We try to make it super easy, not for you so much as for students, but for you also. And we put it in a lot of places on the VMs for the students. So it's actually right here. This is mine. Don't write mine down. But if you have yours there, you can also type the commands that were suggested and try those out. But yes, we can see that IP address, and you want to take a note somewhere. This is where you wanted to have a writing utensil or a scratch piece of paper for yourself. Write down your Cali IP address. You can write down mine too if you want. It'll make it more fun for what I display to you all. But you want to write down yours for yourself so that you can be the malicious actor and the victim on your own machines. Once we have our IP address recorded, we are going to open our social engineering toolkit. So we need admin privileges to be able to do that. So we're going to type sudo super user do and then SE toolkit. Depending on how long that takes to load for you, you can read through the toolkit and the terms of service, or you can just hit yes and enter if you want to have a whole conversation with your students about agreeing to terms of service. Then you could let them read through that. Basically says that the author of this program cannot be held accountable for any malicious use of the program, and it is intended to be used in an educational capacity only. It also says that if you ever see the author out and about in real life, that you can buy him a drink and give him a hug. So we will type Y and press enter to accept the terms. And then we are going to do a social engineering attack. So in the menu, we're going to press 1 and then enter. We say that using the social engineering toolkit is as easy as 1, 2, 3, because we're going to press 1 and enter, and then we get our second menu. We're going to launch a website attack vector. So we're going to press 2 and enter. And we are going to do a credential harvesting attack. So we're going to press 3 and enter. Once we've gotten that far, we restart counting, but not as far. We're going to do a web template attack. So we're going to press 1 and enter. It's going to ask us to confirm that our IP address is correct. So as long as you are able to see that the IP address it lists here is the same as the one you've written down, you're going to press enter again. It's checking that when we create this fake website for the attack, it really is yours. So we press enter. And then we are going to create a Google website credential harvesting attack. So we're going to press 2 and enter. Everyone gotten to this part of the program where it's showing us that it is cloning the website google.com, and then it is running on port 80, and information will be displayed to us as it arrives. Got some more thumbs up. Excellent. All right, so our Kali machine is set. It is running the attack, and it is waiting for a helpless victim to fall for our attack. So we are going to go be our own helpless victims. We are going to click on our Windows machine. we're going to open a web browser. You can open Chrome or Internet Explorer. Either one will work. And in the address bar, you're going to type in your Cali IP address as the URL. So I'm going to type in my Cali IP address, but you're going to type in yours. When you type that in, it should bring you to what appears to be a Google sign-in page. And because the point of the lab is to gain credentials, we're going to log in with fake credentials. Please do not enter your real login information here. No one can access it or see it. This is a non-persistent environment. Everything we enter gets deleted as soon as you log out. But for good practice, don't enter your real information here. Create a fake email address. Password. And then click sign in. Depending on what you entered as your fake password, you might get this pop-up telling you to change your password. I intentionally entered a very commonly used password that has been found in many, many data breaches. So it is telling me that I should change my password. I'm going to say okay and ignore it. It's going to ask me if I want to save that information. It doesn't matter what you click here. I'm going to say no because I don't want it to. And then what do you notice? What should your students notice once they've entered that login information and clicked sign in? Yeah, we just entered our information. We've now been redirected to the real Google website and it's telling us to sign in. So it didn't actually sign us in anywhere. And that should be a signal to us that something went wrong, something happened. So we're going to click back into our Kali machines. And we should see that we got a hit. It looks like my machine got more than one hit because Charlene also used my IP address. So I see my hit early on when I typed my own on my machine. And then Charlene also typed in the IP address for my machine with a super secret password. I like how we both put an exclamation mark at the end. And then on your machines, you should see whatever you entered as the credentials that were harvested for email and password. And since my machine is still up, if anyone wants to go back to their Windows machine and type in my IP address and enter more fake credentials, we can actually watch it load in real time. If you use this lab with students, you can have them work with a partner and give each other their IP's address. Or you can let the students only be the victim and only have the Windows machine and all send credentials to your teacher machine so that you can see them all loading. So I can see different IP addresses that are accessing me and I get those login credentials. Leave it up for one more minute in case anyone else is sending us super secret passwords. I don't see any other hits coming through. I'm gonna close my Windows window because I don't even need it, and I'm gonna close this one here. If you want to play around for another few minutes inside your machine, we don't need to disconnect them, just in case you want to do a few minutes of exploring. However, we will be closing those all before the end of the PD, and we'll unfortunately be resetting all of those accounts at the end of the night so that you won't be able to access it again. But you can create your own account and get access to the range and use this whenever you want with students. All right, so I have switched back to my slides just for the end of this session. This is, again, that wrap-up slide that we like to put at the end of our lessons. We want students to think about what happened and how to defend against a similar type of attack. So we want them to know that they should only use credentials at trusted websites, to double check the URL that they've entered in or clicked on to make sure it's a real one. We want to avoid reusing passwords across multiple websites. I know that is harder to do than to say and suggest. But if one site does steal our information and we're reusing that same password across multiple websites like our email and our bank, then all of a sudden someone has access to all of those accounts from us. We should use two-factor or multi-factor authentication whenever possible, because even if we logged in and someone did take our password, we would, if we have two-factor or multi-factor enabled, we would expect to get that text or need to go into our authenticator app for that second factor. And if it didn't happen, if we didn't receive that text with a code we need to enter, or we didn't need to enter a code from our authenticator app, that should also signal to us that something is wrong and that we need to reset our passwords, because it wasn't a real website. So it will never have sent that two-factor message. And then we can think about other ways that we could defend against a similar attack. If you have any thoughts on that, you can put those in the chat or come off mute and talk to us. We are getting near the end. Having that two-factor is super important. Yes, hand raise. Please talk to me.
Hello. It's not regarding the exact question that you had, but I'm in the situation where with the Civil Air Patrol, we're not allowed to show any hacking or red team type activities because we're blue team defense only. So what I do in the classroom, I run the Kali machine on my side and I send the phishing email to the students that are opening. And as they are opening, they're saying on my screen that is projected that their credentials is all coming on my screen. So I'm able to show them to explain to them how that works without giving them the tricks of using the credential. That is something that I cannot share with them, but that really shake them up when they see that. And because
Yeah.
it looked like a real screen, like a real Google screen. It's like, yeah, it is. But, that's why you have to be careful. So it's a powerful tool to show the student, especially the young one. My student are 12 to 18 years old, and they're all in the same classroom. So they have different level of maturity and knowledge, but it's a lot of fun to do that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Sometimes even in our virtual PDs, we don't have enough time to let participants go through both parts of it. So we often do what you just described, Sylvie, and have participants only have access to the Windows machine just to see the one side of the attack and not actually get to deploy the attack or learn about that, other than seeing it on our screen and seeing us walk through it. So I imagine that would be just as powerful with students. Anyone else have thoughts on this question, the lab, anything else we've looked at this evening? Going to show us one more bonus thing. For anyone who has not seen these before.
Welcome to another episode of our Cyber Safety series, where we give you tips on staying safe online. In this video, we're covering phishing. No, not the kind with boats and water and worms, the kind spelled with a PH. So what is phishing? Phishing is the process of scammers tricking you into giving them your personal information. It's typically done through electronic messages such as emails or text messages, and the scammer sends you messages while posing as an official institution to get you to respond in some way. An example of a common phishing scam is an email that appears to be from your bank, an online store, or some subscription service that you might have. The email looks legitimate, saying something like there's a problem with your account and you need to click a link to log in so that you can fix that problem. The link will bring you to a website that also looks legitimate, but when you type in your email and password into the site, yes, even if you do not hit the submit button, they now have access to your information. And chances are, you use that same password and email address for many websites, which they now have access to. So how do you protect yourself from phishing? If you receive an email, like in the previous example, don't follow the link. Instead, navigate to the institution's website separately and log in at their official portal. If you do click the link, check the URL of the website where the link brings you. It should match the URL of the institution that emailed you. Scammers will often have very similar URLs to the organization they're pretending to be, so be vigilant. Another reason to avoid clicking links is that some links could be dangerous. They may download files to your computer or mobile device. Keep your software updated to help protect your computer from new security threats. Use different passwords for different services. We know this can get annoying and difficult to manage, but if a scammer gets one password, they won't be able to access other services that use that same username if you use different passwords. Lastly, use multi-factor authentication when available. If a scammer gets a password you use for multiple things, they will still need access to your cell phone or other device in order to log into any accounts that use multi-factor authentication. That's all for now. Stay safe out there.
So I wanted to show that video just as another set of resources we have available. I would have used that video as a starter to the lesson or the activity rather than a follow-up. Then again, it gives some of the answers for how to protect yourself. So maybe it would be a good summary video at the end or a watch alone. Just wanted you to see that if you didn't know that we have a set of videos on YouTube called our Cyber Safety series. And that one was our phishing video. All right, this is bringing us kind of to our wrap-up time. At the beginning of tonight, I said we had 3 main objectives we were working towards to gain a better understanding of how to teach cybersecurity. Hopefully, we did that through reviewing several courses and demonstrating examples of lessons. We saw examples from cyber literacy, cyber society, and cybersecurity. We wanted to consider opportunities to integrate cybersecurity topics into our computer science objectives. I tried to do that by connecting some of our lessons to different CS course topics you might have in your classes. And I wanted you to learn about the cyber range. So we participated in a credential harvesting cyber range activity to learn more about that. And bonus, we got to see a cyber safety video. So thank you all. I am going to